Hi, Basem Wasef with Porsche Club of America here in beautiful Monterey, California during Rennsport Reunion 7. I'm here with Alexander Klein, head of Porsche's classic car collection. We're here with a very special, perhaps the most special Porsche in history, Porsche 356 number 1. I want to learn all about this. Tell me all the fun facts and details as we do a walk around of 356 number 1.
Good to have you with us here around the Rennsport 7, and indeed, it is the number 1. I think this is the funny fact itself, because Porsche is one of the few manufacturers that still own their very first ever built car, and that's the real one.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit about the history. You know, I know it was road certified on June 8th, 1948. Officially the founding of Porsche Cars, not as a consultancy that did work for others, but Porsche Cars.
You're right, the road registration has been done in 48. So this is actually the jumping point for the 75th anniversary. But the company itself was founded in 31, so it took them 17 years to get their first car, their really first sports car ready for the road. And it's still there, it's still alive, and we're happy to have a walk around.
Be sure to log into your YouTube account, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video.
This is quite powerful boxer sound.
It's got a throaty sound to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now,
top speed is still 83, or is it different now?
maybe not in Carmel.
We're not going to find out today?
No, we're not find it out today. No, and openly spoken, we didn't try and test it. But it's still quite agile, the car. So to say it in kilometers, it's 120 shouldn't be a problem. So at just normal length roads.
Sounds great.
So not all cars with number 1 do sound that good, still after 75 years.
Uh-huh.
But you feel it's the sportiness of the engine, so the temps are a little.
It's got a pulse, yeah, for sure, yeah. It's got a nice guttural sound for a 1.5, but there must be big resonators.
It's a double carburetor instead of a single one at 1.1, so the airflow is a little bit better. But we kept the same exhaust. Everything is still stock as it was built.
Is the exhaust big? Like, what are the pipes like coming out? So, is there a resonator in the back?
There's a resonator in the back, so it's a little special thing with the exhaust. We had to figure out that for our own, because as you don't have a rear engine car but a mid-engine car, you have a quite hot engine bay behind you.
I've got to say, it's easier to drive than I expected. And when it does grind, it doesn't kill you.
No, indeed.
And so what changed from this very first one to the very first production car? Because obviously this is a prototype.
So obviously, yeah, you're fully right. So the very first car was actually meant as a test car, to figure out does it generally work out to build an own car.
Yeah.
The beginning of this idea was actually also named Volkswagen Sport, so VW Sport. It actually started as an idea to produce a little sport car for Volkswagen. So, and all the build sheets already or still say, so this project Volkswagen Sport. The Porsche family came with deep-rooted knowledge of race cars, you know, from the Auto Union mid-engine racers. They built the Italia Formula cars, so they came with the idea of the state of art, and the state of art sport car at these days was a mid-engine car. And so they built their very first car in that kind of car architecture as a mid-engine. And it was very, very interesting We were even able to follow the old test routes of the test drivers in 47, 48. And we figured out how really heavily they already tested this car and the first rear engine cars as well. So they were tested parallelly.
Tell me a little bit about how and why Porsche cars still has the very first car when a lot of car makers don't have that luxury.
So that was kind of a pure coincidence as well. So the car was, as you mentioned, road registered and then afterwards driven and raced and showcased in different kind of exhibition and to the public for the very first few years. And then the car was sold to a Swiss guy who kept the car as a daily driver.
Amazing.
And also did some kind of modification, some temporary modifications to make the car more look like a 550 Spider, which was the latest car at that time. But in 1957, we received the car back to the collection, and since then, it's part of our collection.
Great. So let's go by some of the most interesting points and talk to me through what's unique about this particular car.
So beside the fact that's the very first one built, you recognize that the car still has no Porsche crest mounted at the front lid. It was still the name Porsche, which was really unknown at a little sports car like this. So they had to promote themselves at first. So the crest appeared later, some years later in '53 with a well-known Porsche and Stuttgart Stutz crest. So yeah, you couldn't identify it at that time by crest, but only by the name Porsche, which was new at the market. So they started with the car, but you still have to consider the car as a pure prototype car. It's not a production car. They never built a mid-engine car at that time. They continued or started their production with just rear-engine cars. So it's really a first-off, a one-off, and the still only remaining prototype of the 356.
So interestingly, this was originally powered by an 1100cc flat 4, correct? You switched it to a 1500cc. Same essential engine, correct? But that was from, was it a 1951, you said, SL?
So we are still owning the 1.1 liter engine, so it's still part of the collection. But to make it a little bit more drivable for such purposes that we do today, so it's quite unusual to drive that car here alongside the beach, we chose to pick up the 1.5 liter, which derives from the 356 SL, which was the sport purpose model at that time from '51.
I did a first gear pull up the hill. It pulled fine. I'd imagine it'd be a little bit more of a challenge with a smaller engine. But when you're driving this car, it feels very alive, you know? I mean, it's a very small, light car. We're talking about well under 2,000 pounds, 1,800 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. It's got this character. It's got this sort of burble. It's got a lower pitched exhaust note than you would expect for a small engine.
So all these key facts and figures that make a Porsche. So this is the founder of the Porsche sports car DNA, lightweight, reliable, rolling sound. So an agile car with a very responsive engine like today.
So let's just do a bow to stern here. It's incredible to drive the split window with no rear sill over here, just glass here. Is this actual glass?
This is actual glass. So you see these little hooks. You could even close the car with a little soft top. That was meant to be stored behind the seats. But today at California's coastline, we do not need the soft top.
And unlike many Porsches that we've become accustomed to, this was pre-tachometer. So the only gauge you have here is a simple speedometer in the middle. Show us a little bit of your little cheat with the temperature gauge.
So to be sure that the car is, after 75 years, still able to do some downhill, uphill things around the coastline of California, we installed a little temperature gauge over here. You see that one? So to have a look to the oil temperature. Because as you see here, this is the engine bay. So it's directly behind driver, co-pilot, in front of the trunk. And so with these little 5 or 6 louvers at each side, this is the only air intake. And so we have to be sure that the car does not suffer any heat issues.
And how does this remove? Are these, it looks like knurled screws here?
These are just screwed things that fix that little lid above the engine.
And then moving to the back here, beautiful tapered rear. And is this exactly what it looked like? Because it was restored, correct?
So the car does not look like the car which was how it was built in '48. So afterwards, as I mentioned, the private guy did some modifications to make it a little bit closer to the 550 Spider. But the general shape of the car is still there. So the general lights in the back, the A, which means Austria, where the car was road registered, is still there. So the lids are still there. And once you open the lid, you see still the weldings that have been done for the kind of modifications. But we didn't remove them. So we let the car tell its own story with all kind of modifications. And we pay our respect to the history of the car, including all these modifications.
And it does, you know, it feels like a space frame because the door shell is just the shell. You don't have a structure. You've got sort of like a lot of room around you in the cockpit here. How did that evolve over the years as the 356 grew up later on?
So actually you have some subframe things underneath. So this is just classic sports car roadster. Afterwards, you just get the normal 356 body shell, which is a self-carrying structure, but they still worked with this tubes of the car underneath.
And so, how much is aluminum and how much is steel?
So the skin that you see at the outer shell is all over aluminium. So, but the steel fracture underneath, the structure is meant in steel.
There's not a lot to it, and that's why it's so delightful to drive. It just feels so light. The steering is extremely low effort, and I love the feeling of space that you get. You really know where the car sits around you. You kind of the car wraps around you. It's very, very nice. And so how many miles have you put on this particular car?
Me personally, not too many. So the car is, although an active car, not too often in usage. So we do some promotion runs. We did that together with Dr. Wolfgang Porsche in Austria this year. We had the car involved in the Goodwood Festival Speed with Mark Webber, and today with you here in California.
I feel very lucky. I'm very fortunate to experience this incredible specimen, the original today.
The number one.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Welcome.
And yeah, it's an honor.
But,
was it a cost savings thing that made it go rear engine?
no, actually it was a question of the utilization of a car in terms of a sports car. So you could easily figure out that when we both fit in the car, we fit in the car, but behind us there is the engine. There's a very tight, maybe a trunk available, but once you turn the engine itself, so you get the gearbox to the front and the engine to the rear, it opens more space in the interior of the car. So you can realize the 2+2 concept of the architecture of a car. So, and this is how they realized then their sports car idea by following the trace 2+2. They like to have their children in the car, they like to have their golf bags in the car, their hunting stuff. So the Porsche idea was always to have a sports car, but with enough interior room to feel well.
Yeah.
And that was not given with the mid-engine concept.
But it was also more inexpensive too, right, to make it rear engine?
Actually, if you see the architecture underneath of the car, it makes sense to just turn the entire drivetrain. So yeah, I don't think so that it was the question of costs. It was rather a question of how the entire car architecture looks like afterwards in terms of enough room. So and the intention was as well to launch a new own car as a closed car and an open car eagerly. So and that was given with a 2+2 concept. Most types of 356s were available at the same time.
What a view, wow. When California is good, it's really good.
Even better with this 356 number 1.
Perfect, this is perfection.